there, going to do a review on the ESEE Izula today. This is the Izula 1, there is an Izula 2 which has a slightly longer handle. The purpose of this knife is to be a neck knife, which is kind of an everyday carry type knife for places where you would be able to carry a fixed blade every day, or if you were in a situation where you'd be remaining on lots of private property and therefore out of the reach of public weapons laws. At any rate, it's a 2.5 inch blade, total length of about 4.5 inches. It's a, sorry, not 4.5 inches, about 6.5 inches. It's a 1095 steel, and it's heat treated by a company called Rowan, which does all of the ESEE US made 1095, and it is quite a high regarded steel treatment that they do there. ESEE, to the point, are happy enough with it that they'll back it for a lifetime, so they're pretty satisfied it's not going to have bubbles and cracks and chips in it, so it must be fairly good. For the price, and I'll just be rolling in footage as I do this review, you get for the basic price in Australia, which was about $90, up to about $110. I paid $70, it was on special, but the special no longer exists. You'll get just the basic knife, and you'll get its sheath, which is a molded plastic sheath which comes with a clip, and you'll get a couple of ESEE sort of survival card type things in the package as well. The blade has a thickness of about 3mm, so that's pretty much in standard with lots of the other sort of smaller companion type knives. And really, for me, that is exactly what I'll use this knife as. A companion type knife for when I go hiking, camping, or an everyday carry knife if I am remaining on private property. So let's talk about the basic facts of the blade. So the drop point blade has a pretty high level of utility, and it really does feel like something like a folding knife, but that is obviously fixed when you use it. So you're going to be using it for smaller tasks, and in my experience it can really be pushed to greater limits than your folding knife, in that you can do wood carving, battening, splitting, firewood prep quite easily, but then you can also scale it back to your more everyday tasks, like using against cardboard, so breaking down sort of larger boxes for putting in your yellow bin for recycling, all that sort of business. And even if you're pushed, you could do some light food prep with it, make sandwiches, cut up fruit, whatnot. So really large amount of utility. It's long enough in the handle that you can get a good 4-fingered grip on it, and therefore it does make it slightly more comfortable to use. Its sheath locks into place pretty well, and in my experience it fits the best on the pocket, because then it doesn't ride as high. So if you clip it onto your pocket, and as long as when you draw it you use your thumb against the sheath rather than just pulling the knife straight up, which will pull the clip off, you'll be able to draw it and carry it really, really easily. I'm not big on neck carry, it just doesn't sit right with me. That's purely a personal thing. If it sits right with you, this will do a great job as a neck knife. Let's talk about what I like about the knife. The overall quality of this knife is exceptional. ESEE products are always exceptional, especially the US made fixed blade knives that they do. It comes with a really sharp factory edge, and it comes more or less perfectly finished. It's got a powder coat over it, which is even and has the clear laser etching of all of its brands, things like that. The sheath is well put together for the price, and is a lot better than a lot of other sheaths that you get for these small knives, which are often just simple leather sleeves. It does lock the knife in place, and although it's plastic, which is usually less regarded than Kydex, it really shouldn't make too much of a difference unless you're pushing it to the heat limits that Kydex is better at dealing with. So I think for the general value quality package, it's quite high value. I like the full flat grind. When you do knives this small, I think it's important to go with a full flat grind to keep the sliceability at its highest. Full flat grind is an easy knife to use for most applications, and because it's fairly tall, it's sort of about as tall as your standard sort of flat ground knife, like the Rat 2 there. It is about as good at slicing. In fact, it's a good comparison. The Rat 2, a little bit thinner on the blade, but I notice in performance very little in the way of difference. And really, in terms of your system, it's probably something that you might even use to replace the Rat 2. I know the blade is shorter, but you'll be able to use it for more robust tasks given that it is fixed. So I like its versatility as well. And I like the steel. 1095 is a good choice of steel when you powder coat it like this. All you need to do after you were to use it on food, just run it over some WD-40, and that'll just get all the grime off the edge, which could lead to rust later down the track. So overall, I love the quality. I was fairly happy with the price that I paid for it, but I'll get onto the price perhaps in the next portion. Like the steel, I like the general utility of the blade shape, the blade grinds that they've chosen, and I think it's about as big as you'd need a little companion fixed blade knife to be. 4-finger grip is ideal, even 3-finger is often fine. So let's get on with the things that I'm not super thrilled about. So the handle, in this current configuration, it really is limited to not occasional use, but limited length of use, because really it's just a piece of steel. Not the most comfortable thing when you start digging into wood doing feather sticks and things like that. You will notice there'll be a little bit of digging in, and as it looks, that's not going to be as comfortable as that, for example. Or perhaps think back to the LT Wright Patriot, which had little rounded micarta handles. Much better. So if you are looking to use this as perhaps a main knife when you're camping, I'd suggest investing in the handle kit, which just bulks them out a little bit more, just to give that fuller grip. And I think that's almost an essential thing to do if you do plan on using it as your sort of replacement for a folding knife, if you use a folding knife for extended periods. So this Griptilian, far more comfortable because obviously it's got a full formed handle. Sort of comparable knives actually. Let's zoom out a little bit. We'll just do some comparisons while we're here. So that's the unfavourable portion finished really. The only other thing I guess is the price. They're very expensive in Australia unless you can get them on the special like I got it on. The full handle kit will end up costing you about $150 or something, which is a lot of money for a small 1095 carbon steel knife. So another thing to consider. But let's look at some comparisons. It's pretty much the same size, perhaps a 1/4 of an inch shorter than the Benchmade Mini Griptilian. More full-sized EDC knife is the Line Steel SR2A. Let's have a look at it there. Ontario Rat. There we go. Much bigger knife, the 3.5 inch blade. Of course, handle much fuller as well. Really large handle on the Ontario Rat, which is why it's quite well regarded as a rough use folder because you've got plenty of grip on it. I'll just grab a couple of fixed blades. I'll show it to you next to a Falkniven F1, which is sort of a pretty standard companion knife size as well. So if you are going to get a more dedicated companion knife that you're going to be using long term, I'd suggest something perhaps more like this. Definitely a good little backup or third knife. Great kits that this would fit into. I would suggest perhaps if you are going to use it as a folding knife replacement, I'd go with something like a large survival knife and maybe a saw, or you could extend your kit further to have perhaps an axe as well. And really it'd be sort of filling the place of bringing a knife like this, which I like because you're less likely to lose a knife that is on a well-made sheath rather than a clip that's on your pants, especially if you're going through the bush. These can get tugged off pretty easily. You could always lanyard to your belt, whatnot, but I have sort of, since I lost my paramilitary whilst kayaking, I have always been a bit more open to perhaps using something similar to this. So yeah, overall, I'm really happy with this so far. I think I paid a really good price for it. If you can see them for about sort of, I think under $100, I think it's good value. I think it's about as good a value as getting, you know, a folding pocket knife. I mean, value folding pocket knives sort of starts to take a bit more of a curved or a skewed point of view because they do become more fashion pieces. This is definitely not a fashion piece. This is true practicality, as you can see by its sparse and yet super efficient design. So I think for under $100, I think it's a definite buy, but between 100 $150, unless you're getting a full scales kit, perhaps the fire kit as well, I'd probably be holding off, perhaps trying to find one on eBay or get one at a lower price from the United States and just wait the few weeks that it could take to get here. Alright, so that's my ESEE Izula thoughts. A really good, well-rounded knife. So I'll see you next video.